Welcome to another episode of Job Tales, the podcast that shares personal accounts of professional pathways taken by people like you and me throughout the world. Sara Debora is a musician. In particular, she is a violinist. She started playing when she was only 4 and has been a musician ever since. Sara Debora, tell us your story.
Hi, I'm really glad to be here. So for me as a musician, I'm a violinist. I also play the viola and I also use piano for some of my job. So I am a performer. That means I perform both solo, chamber music, orchestra, and in particular early music as well. And I teach as well. So I teach students from as young as 4 up to conservatory and university level.
Okay, how much in percentage is your work as a performer and your work as a teacher today?
So at the moment, as we speak, I have about, I do 2 mornings and 3 afternoons of teaching in the week. And then the performing comes and goes in patches a bit, but there's obviously also the background work, which is always the practice, the ongoing practice, and that's something one doesn't really see, and it's not really paid as well, but it's okay. Obviously has to be ongoing all the time. So sometimes I have more busy patches, then I get maybe employed by an orchestra, so I play with early music groups like the English Concert or the Dunedin Consort, Florilegium, things like that, and I might get a whole opera season for one opera. So there might be a number of rehearsals and then performances, or we might have a tour where we go out and have, let's say, 2-3 concerts in another country.
Okay.
Or it's a sort of one-off concert where you sort of come and have an afternoon rehearsal and then a concert. And then for chamber music, I might be rehearsing with a group for a while, or for solo, most of the work would be in my own study, and then I'd go somewhere and perform with an orchestra as a soloist. Yeah, and one of the things that I also do here in the community is I run a festival. So various concerts of, so it's mostly a string orchestra that I direct, and then we involve local children who play. Who learn an instrument. We involve those in workshops and concerts, and we have people coming in for chamber music or for various genres really of music, more world music or singer-songwriters and things like that.
And I have one of my let's say a stereotype of a musician is that you start from when you're very, very young. Is that the case also for you? Did you know
yes.
from?
Okay. Yes, it is. I think it is a justified stereotype in a way, because there's just a lot you have to already learn when you're very young, and the earlier you start, in a way, the more natural that might come to you. So I started playing the violin when I was 4. I was interested maybe even earlier on, but my parents didn't know that there were sort of small violins around like that. And really, we started making music in the family when I was sort of from scratch, from the beginning. So I'm one of 5 children, and we grew up sort of with lots of singing. Really, that was the main thing: singing, and then sort of adding percussion instruments, organ instruments, and then sort of gradually taking up instruments that we sort of studied more intensely, obviously. And making music sort of like that in the family was always a great inspiration. And it was also the first way of performing was in the community, like in hospitals or in old people's homes, or sort of retirement homes, places like that. And then small community concerts, and then sort of that gradually built up to more sort of visible concerts.
So you started to play the violin when you were very, very young, and also you were very familiar with music sheets from the early years of your life. And then did your parents bring you to a school, like a music school, right away? How does it go along with let's say the normal curriculum?
So in Germany, really, it works a lot with music schools, a bit like the conservatories in Italy or in southern countries. So you kind of learn outside the normal school education, and you take lessons. So I took lessons in the music school for violin and then later piano. And then with 13, I became a junior student at one of the conservatoires. And I actually had to travel quite a long time. Every Saturday, I spent 3 hours on the train there and 3 hours back to meet a specific teacher, because the teacher is really everything there. It's really important to find somebody who teaches you everything, the whole skill set, and also how to be relaxed with an instrument, especially like with the violin. It's very important that it sort of fits to your body, because there's lots of potential for undue tension. Yes, and obviously you need to get on with the teacher as well, and the person has to be very supportive, but also to your personality, because obviously one is still a sort of growing musician and a young person, and when you learn an instrument, there's a lot of confidence issues also around it, and it's very linked to your own personality. Maybe for singers even more, but also for instrumentalists. So it's all about you learn how to take criticism, how to listen to yourself, how to reflect, and then improve on that, and just grow all the time. You grow all the time. You learn repertoire, of course, but you learn also the technique. You learn a good psychology mindset as well, and that's all part of it, really.
Oh, I can see that. And why do you say it's more so for singers than for players?
Oh, well, so I think we might think about it more for singers, because for the singers, their instrument is their voice, so it's like a part of their body, and so that's maybe even more personal.
I see.
That's why. But I think for instrumentalists, it's as well, because obviously we also put our understanding of the world into it, and of emotion. So you have the skill set, but in order to be expressive, you deal with what you know and what you feel, and what you understand, I think, about the world, and about you connect that sort of with music. And I think most of music does speak about the composer's understanding as well of the world. And in early music, it's more like a set of known emotions that everybody could tap into in their time. So that some music clearly spoke about certain emotions. I can't think of the word now, but there's a word for it. So basically, that's always been kind of known, and something that composers also worked with. And as the performer, you kind of try to understand as much of the music as you can, and then sort of relate to it, and then carry that across to your audience, of course.
Do you also compose?
Only a little. I've written some songs and so on, and but I wouldn't call myself a proper composer.
You do a lot already. Because when I go back to the studies, right? So when you said that at 13 you started to attend a school, and that was 3 hours on weekends and 3 hours back, that means that was on top of high school that you were.
I did my normal sort of, it's gymnasium in Germany, so high school, and I was very interested in everything, actually. I wasn't ever too single-minded just about music, so I loved learning in everything. And I did my high school actually a bit quicker. I finished it at age 16 with the Abitur, and that was quite good, because it meant I was earlier free to pursue the music. Yes, and maybe one of the really crucial moments sort of that changed my idea around about doing it as a profession was meeting Lord Yehudi Menuhin at age 13. And it was just this moment that he conducted in the area. And so I wanted to meet him and play for him. And so we kind of, through some connection, we managed to get into a press conference, and I managed to ask him sort of, while I asked for a signature, if I could play for him and take his opinion, and so he said yes. And then after the concert, he was quite tired, and he was sort of shoved out at the door in the back, and my dad was luckily there, and he said, oh please, he said we could. And so we arranged something for very early next morning in a hotel, and so I played to him, and he was very encouraging. and said, just believe what is in you, and sort of try to give us some practical advice as well, and what I could pursue in terms of teachers and so on. And that's when I changed teacher and then started to go to the junior academy. And I think it was just that idea, okay, this seems to be going well, and I will pursue that as long as it's going well. And originally I had thought I'd study medicine, but that never happened. So then at 16, when I had finished my high school, I was looking for further tuition, obviously, and I met another teacher at a master class, and he was in England, and so I tried to come to the UK for studies, and after a year then, which I started my university studies first in Germany, and then I came to the UK and went to the Guildhall School of Music and Drama.
Okay.
And as an undergraduate student, yeah.
How many years did you study in total? Do you know?
I started with age 4, and then age 13, I did 3 years of junior student, and then after that, I did 4 years of undergraduate, partly in Germany and partly in the UK. And then I did 3 more years of postgraduate. What happened in my undergraduate studies that was a bit hard was that my teacher, who I came to London for, was actually passed away after 1.5 years. So that was quite hard. And so, I was left a bit without sort of mentor at that point. But I did have, it was an amazing time, being in London and meeting all these other musicians, playing together, doing lots of chamber music, lots of orchestra. And if anything, I sort of overworked a bit. Okay. And then there was a sort of mental stress a bit from losing the teacher. So that was kind of a hard time as well, also being away from my parents at age 17. And then I found another teacher for my postgraduate years, who was a Russian teacher, and she taught at the Yehudi Menuhin school as well, and she taught postgraduate students and undergraduate students at the Royal College of Music. And so I went there and studied with her, and she totally sorted me out in terms of physical, so I had sort of built up quite a lot of stress also physically in my shoulders and so on. And she really helped me build that down and just equip me with all the skills I needed. And I think I was always a musical performer and had learned a lot of that in my through encounters with many musicians, and so the expression was always a strong point of mine. And then at that point, learning with her gave me also all the technical skills and also the knowledge of teaching a bit, because then I observed her teaching at the Yehudi Menuhin Academy, and so teaching the young ones as well. And so when they then had a job free as an assistant teacher there at the Yehudi Menuhin Academy, and then and so I started there, and that was the beginning of my teaching as well.
Okay, I see. And what do you enjoy most about your profession, between teaching and performing, of course?
Yeah, I think the variety of it. So I love performing. I love the music. In the end, it's sort of immersing yourself totally in music, and it's like a total. Yeah, you're just in there when you do that, and exchanging with other musicians, a very, very intense exchange, which is on a quite different level than anything you can achieve by talking or in any other way, really. And it's such a deep level of communication and exchange. And so doing chamber music is one of the best things for me. Yeah, I enjoy leading ensembles, like the string orchestra I lead here, sort of sharing out ideas. I love the interaction with the audience. We've had amazing sort of experiences with people who have been so happy through listening to music, and really helped them, or they gave us feedback about how wonderful a time they had listening. And sometimes you feel that power coming back really strong when you have a good audience, and you're not always in the best of places as a performer yourself, so you might have a bit of a hard day or something, but then if you feel that energy from the audience, that is great.
That's a good point. Yeah, because I know that your private life is also very filled and very busy. You have 3 children.
Yes, that's right.
And how does that fit with the overall context of being a musician?
in some ways it fits quite well because I'm obviously a freelance musician, so I can juggle around things in a way. So I'm not tied to a 9 to 5 hours job, and I wasn't ever tied to the sort of 1 year maternity leave restriction or something like that. So I find I maybe got the best of both, and that I could spend time with my children and spend especially the early years, these crucial early years, really looking after them, but also not give up the performing. So I'd get some help often from my mom or from my mother-in-law or of course my husband to in the early stages. They often brought the young children sort of behind. So if I would perform, they'd be in the back room, and I'd sort of, feed the children or whatever just before going out. And then with sort of more children, that was more like, okay, they stayed at home and I would go out, but I know they were in good hands, obviously. And yeah, that way I was able to continue and to do recordings or competitions. I did various competitions in that time as well. Yes, I didn't do so much touring at that point. So touring with groups, I didn't want to be away for like 3-4 days at a time. So I think you do step back a bit, definitely. And maybe there are ways my career didn't quite develop in as it would have, without children. That's for sure, because I had my children quite early on. So I was 25 when I had my first. But on the other hand, it also gives you a good balance in life, in the sense that there's something more important. So music can be very competitive, especially at the beginning. Sort of in the young years, when you sort of really try to start out and get your connections and go to a good stage, sort of with where you are at with the performance and so on, and being seen, and maybe trying for an agent and so on. And it can be hard to sort of not lose your way in this and really concentrate on why it is you do this, because you really love it. And then if you see the children, you're like, okay, there's something more important.
Yes.
There are other things in life.
It's true that it is very hard, imagine, right, to break it into the industry as a performer. So in that sense, when you're looking at maybe colleagues or other musicians who did the same, did the same path, what are the doors that open up to them when they finish their training and their education as musicians? You were talking about agents, you were talking about going to competitions and auditions, I guess.
There are these ways that you can try to obviously approach agents or go for competitions, and that's one of the ways, and it's a hard way. I did various competitions and I was successful at some. So, I won one competition, sort of the last one I did, and that was a great experience. But actually, the agent that should have taken me on didn't get any concerts from me, and so the after development wasn't as good as I thought it would be. So even if you are successful, it doesn't mean it's all laid out for you. So in the end, if you're lucky and you're good at what you do, then hopefully by the time you're graduating, you already have some contacts and your name is maybe passed around for orchestras, for gigs. And then, of course, you might do auditions for some orchestras if that's the way you want to go. Lots of people then might go onto a rota for sessions, or so for recording sessions, or for shows like the big West End shows, for instance. That's not something I did. So I concentrated more on the chamber music, really, and the early music. So with the early music, I was quite lucky to have really lots of support also from the teachers there. And the circle is relatively small, so people do pass you around, and that is great. And so that I got into contact with various ensembles who would ask me on a regular basis. And then for chamber music and solo was a lot about sort of self-promotion, reaching out to concert promoters, to organizers of festivals and so on, putting on a pack of sort of an audition pack or a sort of promotion pack with maybe some, obviously some photos, the CV, and maybe some material of, some audio material. And of course, these days it goes a lot more online. And so yes, that's not my strongest point, the online promotion, and it's a good thing in a way that, the last sort of during the pandemic, a lot of people have become much more self-sufficient with that. You can put things online and you don't necessarily rely on an agent to be seen.
How about age? Is that important, to start at the right time? Or have you encountered musicians that started in their, 20s and then have become successful or have got themselves a profession in that field?
Let's say age does seem to be important, especially for instrumentalists, I would say. Lots of people do start very young. However, there are exceptions, and I've seen pianists who have sort of come around a bit later, but often these are people who might have learned an instrument early on, but then didn't want to make it their profession, studied something else, and then came back to it, and they have successfully made a career. Singers, it often happens with singers actually, that they learn something else first and then go across. The thing is, in music, your career is never laid out for you. There's no sort of chosen path which you can easily follow. And that's exciting, but also challenging. So it's always about, believing in yourself and exploring what you want to do, obviously getting to know the various options. And that's it's a huge field out there, what you could do, and seeing what you love to do. And then also a lot about connection with people, I think. So just about the teaching, I love that as well. And that's maybe something that as a mother was also quite well combined. I worked a bit with early years, and then, of course, with older years. It's just exciting to see young people, find their own and to help them discover something. And there are always these moments when you sort of connect and you think, oh, now I found a way of telling that you really got it. Every young person obviously has a completely different setup. And so every lesson will be different, and the way you work with a young person is always different. And so it's exciting when people take the inspiration of music and grow with it.
Absolutely. It must be such a satisfaction when
yes.
you learn.
Yeah, absolutely.
Is there something you know now that you wish you had known when you started the whole process?
I think one thing that is really helpful to know is that setbacks happen. As in, you might have some successes, and there will also be lots of times you're being told no, or, you don't get that audition, or you don't get that competition. And that's a natural process. And, obviously not everybody can win all the time. and I think it's helpful to know that there are hard times to go through, and probably every musician goes through times when things are trickier, also when they doubt themselves. And eventually, I think those make it out who really believe in themselves. And you get help, hopefully, from family, from friends, from your teachers, to sort of build up that belief. But in the end, it's about how passionate I think you feel for your job. And then, of course, it's a lot about hard work as well. And I think at any age, whatever hard work you will put in will come out of it. So you said about myths of the job. There's a lot of myths, I think, for people who think, there's this thing about talent, and you might have a talent and you just sort of excel in it. And these are these amazing kids who just can do it all. And I think there's so many other things that play in, the mindset, the discipline, the love of learning, a real sort of search, and how you do teamwork as well with people.
Does it mean that also if you're not talented, you can make it?
Let's say I've seen some people succeed where you thought maybe they were a little bit less talented, but had a big drive and a big sort of sense of entrepreneurship and that sort of thing. I think you do need some talent. And I've taught some students who had less sort of sense of rhythm or ear or something, and it's harder work for the teacher as well. There's a lot you can do with will, I think, but yes, it does help to sort of get just immersed in music and just developing a love of it, of course, and have a talent.
Talent is a good start, but there's a lot more to it. Every musician will tell you that. And this is not just for music, but in any profession we choose in life. If you want to be interviewed, please write me at jobtalespodcast@gmail.com. Don't be shy. See you next time. Bye.